She still remembers the moment he said he needed space with that forced, calm voice. It wasn't a breakup. It felt like a verdict delivered without any chance to appeal. He stared past her like she had become furniture in their own living room. Her stomach dropped because she could already sense another name behind his words. Years of sacrifice suddenly looked invisible, like they never counted for anything. She tried to ask questions, but every sentence came out smaller than her fear. He promised it wasn't about someone else, yet his eyes refused to meet hers. That silence was louder than confession, louder than an argument could ever be. And in that pause, she realized love can die without making any sound. She smiled to survive, but something inside her cracked beyond repair that night. The next morning, she cleaned the house like routine could erase humiliation. Her hands moved on autopilot, while her mind replayed every warning she ignored. She remembered how he stopped holding her hand in public months ago, how his compliments became rare and his patience became a sharp, short temper. She remembered buying groceries with coupons while he upgraded his wardrobe quietly. She remembered him laughing at messages and hiding his phone like a teenager. Her friends told her she was overthinking, but intuition doesn't need proof. The truth was already building a home in her chest, room by room. And now she was walking through it alone, trying not to fall apart. Even her reflection looked shocked, like her own face didn't recognize her anymore. By evening, he finally admitted there was someone else, like it was unavoidable. He said he found himself and wanted a future that felt more exciting. He made it sound like she was a chapter, and the new woman a sequel. He explained it with polite cruelty, as if betrayal could be negotiated calmly. He told her she deserved better while taking everything that once was theirs. Then he asked her to stay civil, to keep things mature and not embarrass him. The audacity of that request made her throat burn with silent disbelief. She wanted to scream, but her pride held her mouth shut like a lock. So she nodded slowly, not because she agreed, but because she refused to beg. And he walked away, thinking he won, not realizing he just created his downfall. That night, she sat on the floor with her back against the bed. She didn't cry at first. She just stared at the wall for hours, numb. Her phone buzzed with his messages about paperwork and logistics like she was staff. He spoke to her like a problem to manage, not a person he shattered. Outside, the city kept moving, but her world felt frozen in slow collapse. She thought about calling someone, but shame felt heavier than loneliness in her chest. She wondered what she did wrong, then hated herself for asking that question. Because deep down, she knew his choices weren't caused by her imperfections. They were caused by his hunger for validation and his addiction to easy escapes. And in that realization, pain became something sharper than sadness. It became resolve. The next week felt like walking through fire while pretending nothing burned. She signed papers with shaking hands, forcing herself to read every line twice. He acted impatient, as if her pain was an inconvenience delaying his new life. He showed up wearing cologne she bought him, like a cruel souvenir of trust. He smiled too much, trying to look like the good guy ending things politely. She watched him perform that role with ease, and it made her stomach twist. Every conversation became a reminder that she was now a task on his calendar. She learned quickly that betrayal doesn't end once someone leaves the house. It lingers in routines, in memories, in the way your body braces for nothing. And each day she had to choose dignity again, even when dignity hurt. Then she saw her for the first time, standing near his car like she belonged. The woman looked confident, dressed in expensive simplicity, smiling like she won a prize. She leaned into him casually, as if his loyalty had always been available. Her husband introduced her with a laugh, calling her someone you'll like. That sentence hit like a slap wrapped in polite packaging, soft but humiliating. The new woman shook her hand with fake warmth, eyes scanning her like a project. She complimented her shoes, then glanced at the apartment like she was inspecting value. It wasn't kindness, it was dominance pretending to be friendliness in public. and he stood there proud, watching the comparison he secretly wanted happen. In that moment, she understood the betrayal wasn't private. It was meant to be seen. Friends began choosing sides without admitting they were making a choice at all. Some stopped calling because discomfort is easier than loyalty for weak people. Others asked invasive questions, treating her heartbreak like entertainment over coffee. She smiled through it, knowing she had to protect her future reputation. She could feel sympathy turning into judgment, the way it always does. People love to support you until your pain lasts longer than their patience. Her husband's story traveled faster than hers, and it was polished like a brand. He framed himself as unhappy for years, like that justified what he did. He made her sound cold, ungrateful, too emotional, too difficult to keep. And she watched lies become accepted truth simply because he repeated them confidently. One afternoon, she opened the bank account and saw the reality clearly. The savings was smaller than she thought because he had been moving money quietly. Bills were stacked, rent was due, and her income alone wouldn't cover comfort. He texted her casually saying she should tighten her budget like it was advice. She realized he didn't just leave her emotionally, he planned to leave her struggling. He wanted her unstable because a stable woman doesn't stay silent or disappear. For the first time, panic rose in her throat, thick and uncontrollable. But instead of collapsing, she started writing everything down like a strategy. Because survival isn't hope, survival is clarity, discipline, and stubborn resistance. And she decided she would rebuild so hard that his memory would feel irrelevant. If this story is making you feel the pain, the betrayal, and the injustice behind every choice, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Here, every story dives deep into broken trust, hard lessons, and powerful revenge. And you don't want to miss the next fate-changing story. He moved into a new apartment and posted photos like he had been reborn. Smiling dinners, weekend trips, expensive drinks, all staged to look effortless. He wanted the world to believe leaving her was the smartest decision he ever made. And every like, every comment praising his new chapter felt like a knife. Meanwhile, she was counting bills, skipping small comforts, and sleeping with tension. He didn't just abandon the marriage, he abandoned responsibility like it was optional. She watched him upgrade his life using the stability she helped him build. That injustice sat in her chest like a heavy stone that never stopped pressing. But she didn't chase him because begging only feeds the ego of a careless man. Instead, she became quiet, the kind of quiet that hides a plan. The woman he chose started appearing at places that used to be hers. Her favorite cafe, her gym, even the grocery store she went to every Sunday. It felt intentional, like the new woman enjoyed walking through stolen territory. She would smile politely, then speak loud enough for others to hear subtle insults. She hinted that the marriage ended because some people stopped trying after years. It was disrespect disguised as a motivational quote, sweet poison in public. And the worst part was watching him laugh along like he deserved a prize. He looked at his new partner like proof that he was still valuable and wanted. He treated her like an upgrade, and that comparison was meant to crush her, but she held her head up because broken posture invites more attacks. One night, she received a message from him that changed everything. He asked if she could sign another document, something about debt consolidation. He pretended it was routine, but her instincts told her it was dangerous. She read the details carefully and realized he was trying to shift debt onto her. Debt he created, debt he hid, debt tied to his new lifestyle and ego. He thought she would sign quickly out of habit, out of trust, out of fear. Her hands trembled as anger rose, hot and clear, finally replacing confusion. She called him, and for the first time, she didn't sound like someone asking. She sounded like someone deciding, and that shift made him suddenly nervous. And when she refused, his voice changed from calm to threatening in seconds. After that call, she sat in silence and understood the full picture. He wasn't just selfish, he was strategic, and he expected her to stay weak. He wanted her to carry the weight so he could keep the image intact. He wanted her stressed, exhausted, and embarrassed, so she would never fight back. That was when she stopped seeing him as a lost love and saw him as a predator with a smile, a suit, and the ability to charm people easily. She realized her survival would require more than healing. It required protection. So she started researching legal steps, financial recovery, and personal reinvention. Not as revenge yet, but as armor, because peace without power is temporary. And she promised herself she would never again confuse love with loyalty. The pressure didn't come all at once. It came in waves meant to wear her down. He started calling late at night, leaving voicemails that sounded calm but carried threats. He reminded her about what people would think, as if reputation was a leash. He hinted he could make things very difficult if she stopped cooperating fully. Then he switched again, acting charming, apologizing, offering fake concern like medicine. That emotional whiplash was intentional, designed to keep her confused and compliant. She recognized the pattern only because she finally allowed herself to see it clearly. Abusers don't always shout. Sometimes they whisper with a smile to control you. And the more she resisted, the more his kindness became a weapon with teeth. Her stomach stayed tight for days, as if her body expected danger before it arrived. Bills kept stacking, and the fear of falling behind turned into real exhaustion. She worked longer hours, accepted extra tasks, and still felt like it wasn't enough. Each time she checked her account, her heart sank like it was losing air. She stopped buying little joys because guilt made pleasure feel irresponsible now. Even eating out felt like betrayal of her own recovery plan and future safety. She watched others live casually while she calculated every dollar like a soldier. At night, she lay awake thinking about the life she used to recognize. The apartment felt too quiet, not peaceful, but empty in a way that echoed. Her confidence shrank daily, not because she lacked strength, but because she lacked support. And loneliness has a way of making strong people doubt themselves eventually. Then the humiliation came back in public, sharper than before. A mutual friend hosted a gathering, and her ex arrived holding the new woman proudly. He introduced her like a trophy, smiling as if he was doing everyone a favor. The room reacted with awkward admiration because people love shiny stories. The new woman smiled at her with that practiced expression of effortless superiority. She leaned in close and whispered, "I guess you weren't enough for him." It wasn't loud, but it was meant to sink deep and poison her nerves. Her hands went cold, and for a second, rage fought against her self-control. But she inhaled slowly, looked her in the eye, and smiled back without shaking. Because nothing confuses cruel people more than a victim who refuses to look defeated. That night, she went home and broke down for the first time fully. Not because she missed him, but because she was tired of carrying everything alone. She cried until her eyes burned, then stared at the ceiling, empty and furious. She asked herself why she still cared what they thought, and the answer hurt. Because part of her still wanted justice, not dramatic, but undeniable and public. She wanted them to regret the way they treated her like disposable history. She wanted her name to mean something again, not as a warning, but as power. And in that darkness, she finally stopped praying for him to come back. She started praying for herself to rise, even if rising required becoming someone new. Because when a woman stops hoping for the past, the future finally has space. The next morning, she made a decision that felt small but changed everything. She stopped checking his social media, stopped monitoring their fake happiness online. She blocked the accounts, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect and strategy. Because you can't heal while watching people celebrate the knife they used on you. She cleaned her apartment like she was clearing a battlefield after a long war. She threw away old photos, gifts, and anything tied to a version of her that suffered. Then she opened her laptop and searched for jobs she once thought were too big. Better pay, better environment, better future, the kind of work that builds freedom. Her fear tried to talk her out of it, but she didn't negotiate with fear anymore. She applied anyway because confidence isn't a feeling, it's an action repeated daily. She also scheduled a consultation with a lawyer, and that appointment felt surreal. For years, she avoided conflict because she believed love meant forgiveness always. But now, she understood forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone to steal your future. The lawyer reviewed documents and confirmed what she suspected with cold clarity. Her ex had been moving assets, hiding debt, and trying to make her legally responsible. Hearing it out loud made her hands shake, but it also made her calm. Because knowing the truth removes the fog, and fog is what keeps people trapped. The lawyer gave her steps, not emotional comfort, but a map out of the chaos. And for the first time in months, she felt something close to control again. Not revenge yet, but structure, and structure is the first form of power. Then something unexpected happened that made the world feel different. A recruiter reached out about a position she applied for years ago and never got. The salary was higher than she ever made, with benefits and a real career path. She almost didn't respond because part of her still believed she didn't deserve wins. But she answered anyway, and the interview was scheduled faster than she expected. She prepared obsessively, rehearsing answers, researching the company, building confidence by force. The day of the interview, she wore a simple outfit that made her feel sharp. She walked into that office like someone borrowing courage until it became permanent. And when she spoke, there was a steadiness in her voice she didn't recognize. It wasn't arrogance, it was survival turning into ambition at the exact right time. After the interview, she sat in her car and realized she felt lighter. Not because her problems disappeared, but because her life finally had direction again. She didn't need his validation, she needed momentum, and momentum was returning slowly. She drove home with music on, not sad songs, but something upbeat and alive. At a stoplight, her phone buzzed with an email notification, and her breath stopped. The company offered her the job, and she read the salary twice to believe it. Tears filled her eyes, but this time it wasn't grief, it was relief and pride. She accepted immediately, hands trembling as if she had just signed a new destiny. And she whispered to herself, "He didn't ruin me, he only revealed me." Because sometimes the fall is just the beginning of the climb. If this story is making you feel the pain, the betrayal, and the injustice behind every choice, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Here, every story dives deep into broken trust, hard lessons, and powerful revenge. And you don't want to miss the next fate-changing story. Her new job changed her life in ways she didn't expect so quickly. The office was brighter, the people were sharper, and no one treated her like invisible labor. She was respected for her skill, not used for her patience and endless forgiveness. Her paycheck arrived, and for the first time, she breathed without panic attached. She paid bills early, rebuilt savings, and watched her account grow like proof of stability. Each deposit felt like a brick placed into a new foundation she could trust. She stopped surviving week to week and started planning months ahead like a strategist. And slowly, her posture changed because financial security has a way of straightening spines. She began to remember who she was before she made herself smaller for love. Not a victim, not a leftover, but a woman with discipline and quiet fire. Then she joined a networking event the company hosted at a luxury hotel downtown. She almost didn't go because her old life trained her to avoid spaces like that. But she forced herself, wearing a dress that made her feel polished and untouchable. The ballroom was full of confident people, soft music, business talk, and opportunity. She introduced herself with calm control, even though her nerves tried to betray her. That's when she noticed him across the room, watching her with curious attention. He wasn't loud or flashy. He carried the kind of presence that didn't need volume. He spoke with a few executives, and everyone seemed to lean in when he smiled. When their eyes met briefly, She felt something unfamiliar, not fear, but curiosity. And within minutes, he walked over like he already knew exactly who she was. He introduced himself politely, asked about her work, and listened with real focus. Not performative listening, not waiting to talk again, but genuine attention and respect. She answered carefully, because her past trained her to distrust charm immediately. But his energy was different, calm, grounded, not trying to win her too fast. He asked questions about her ambitions, not her relationship status or her past drama. He complimented her professionalism, not her body, not her appearance, not her vibe. That alone felt shocking, because she forgot men could admire your mind first. When she mentioned her recent divorce briefly, he didn't pity her or pry deeper. He simply said, "I'm glad you chose yourself," like it was the most normal thing. And something in her chest softened, not into weakness, but into possibility. Before leaving, he handed her his card with a small smile and steady eye contact. It wasn't a flirtation disguised as business. It felt like respect offered with patience. She glanced at the name, and her brain paused for a second. She recognized it from company newsletters, charity events, and business articles. He wasn't just successful, he was a millionaire, the kind people quietly admired. But he didn't carry arrogance, he carried calm certainty like it was natural. She almost laughed at the irony, because life had a dark sense of timing. Months ago, she was being replaced, humiliated, pushed into debt and silence. And now, destiny placed power in her hand without her even chasing it. She walked out of that hotel feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Chosen. The next few weeks felt unreal, like her life was quietly rewriting itself. The millionaire, Adrian, didn't rush her, didn't pressure her, didn't play games. He texted with intention, short messages that showed consistency, not obsession or control. He invited her to dinner once, then waited for her answer without demanding an explanation. That patience made her nervous because she was used to love being a test. But Adrian treated connection like something you build, not something you take. When she finally agreed, he chose a place elegant but not intimidating, private and calm. He greeted her with warmth, opened the door, and looked at her like she mattered. The conversation flowed like safety, not interrogation, not performance, not survival. And for the first time, she laughed without remembering pain in the middle of it. Meanwhile, her ex watched from a distance as her transformation became impossible to ignore. Mutual friends mentioned her new job, her confidence, her glow, and he got restless. He started texting again, asking how she was doing, pretending he suddenly cared. He wrote, "I'm proud of you," like he had any right to claim her progress. She didn't respond, because she learned silence can be a boundary, not a weakness. Then he tried a softer approach, saying he regretted how things ended between them. He blamed stress, blamed confusion, blamed finding himself, anything but his own choices. His new woman started posting more aggressively, trying to look happier than ever. But happiness doesn't need evidence, and insecurity always posts the loudest online. And she smiled quietly because she could feel the power shifting behind the scenes. One night, her ex showed up at her door without warning, like he owned access. He stood there with tired eyes and forced sincerity, asking to talk for closure. She didn't invite him in. She stepped outside and closed the door behind her. That small action alone changed the dynamic, because he wanted to step into her space. He tried to compliment her, saying she looked different, more confident, more alive. Then he asked personal questions, fishing for information like a man searching for leverage. She answered calmly, giving nothing, and his frustration leaked through his fake smile. Finally, he said it directly. "Are you seeing someone?" Like he needed confirmation. She paused, not to hesitate, but to let him feel what uncertainty feels like. Then she replied, "I'm focusing on my life," and watched his ego collapse quietly. The very next day, the legal process hit him harder than he expected. Her lawyer filed for adjustments in the settlement based on hidden debt evidence. Bank statements, transfers, credit activity, everything he thought was safely buried. He called her immediately, furious, claiming she was trying to destroy him. But she stayed calm, because calm is what happens when fear no longer lives inside you. She told him she was protecting herself, not attacking him, and the truth stung him. He threatened to make her life miserable, then begged her to be reasonable again. The switch was so fast it would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. She ended the call, not shaking, not crying, just done with the old version of herself. Because this wasn't revenge, this was accountability, catching up like a shadow at noon. That evening, Adrian invited her to an event, a charity gala with important guests. She almost said no, worried she didn't belong in that world, still carrying old insecurity. But Adrian looked at her and said, "You belong wherever you decide to stand." So she went, walking into that room with her head high and her past behind her. The lights were golden, the atmosphere rich, and she felt eyes turning toward her. Not pity, not judgment, but curiosity, admiration, and respect she earned through struggle. Adrian introduced her proudly, not as an accessory, but as a woman he valued. And in that moment, she realized her ex didn't just lose a wife. He lost the best woman who would have built his empire with loyalty and patience. And now he would have to watch her shine beside someone who knew her worth. The final blow didn't come from her words. It came from reality making its announcement. At the gala, a photographer captured her and Adrian together in a quiet moment. Not posed, not staged, just him leaning in while she smiled with true peace. The photo was posted by the charity's official page, tagged by executives and sponsors. Within hours, it spread through circles her ex could never control anymore. Mutual friends sent messages filled with shock, admiration, and sudden respect. People who once watched her fall now watched her rise like it was a headline. And the difference was simple. She wasn't chasing attention. She was living well. That image didn't just show romance. It showed status, stability, and power. It showed the world she didn't lose the marriage. She escaped the wrong man. Her ex saw it late at night, sitting beside the woman he left her for. The apartment was quiet, the energy cold, the relationship already fragile underneath. He stared at the screen too long, jaw tight, eyes glossy with anger and regret. The new woman noticed immediately, because insecurity can smell competition instantly. She snatched the phone, scrolled, and her face hardened like jealousy turning into hate. She accused him of still loving his ex, of never truly choosing her completely. He tried to deny it, but his silence gave him away like a confession again. Then she exploded, yelling that she didn't steal him just to be second place. In seconds, their shiny relationship cracked open, showing what it really was: ego and lust. And he realized he traded loyalty for excitement, and excitement doesn't stay when things get hard. The court process ended with a ruling that made him feel exposed. He was held responsible for the hidden debt, the transfers, the manipulation attempts. He lost money, credibility, and the polished story he told everyone to stay admired. People who once praised him started distancing themselves the moment the truth surfaced. Because society supports you until your reputation becomes a risk to their comfort. His business partners grew cautious, his circle grew smaller, and his confidence collapsed. He tried to call her, not angry this time, but desperate, voice shaking slightly. He said he wanted to apologize properly, like closure could erase consequences. But she didn't owe him a final conversation. She owed herself a final boundary. She blocked his number and felt nothing, because she had already buried that chapter inside her. A few months later, Adrian proposed in a quiet moment at home. No cameras, no pressure, no performance, just sincerity and a steady promise. He told her he admired how she turned pain into discipline and fear into strength. He said he didn't want to save her, he wanted to build with her. And she said yes, not because she needed someone, but because she finally chose wisely. The wedding was elegant, intimate, and filled with people who respected her story. She walked down the aisle with calm eyes, knowing she earned every step. Not by being perfect, but by refusing to let betrayal be her ending. When she looked at Adrian, she saw partnership, safety, and a future with real standards. And she realized love feels different when it comes with loyalty instead of confusion. 1 year later, her ex saw her again by accident outside a luxury building. She stepped out of a car, confident, glowing, wearing success like it was natural. Adrian held her hand, and she looked happy in a way that couldn't be faked. Her ex froze, trying to speak, trying to reclaim a version of her that no longer existed. She looked at him politely, not bitter, not angry, just completely done. Then she smiled once, not as forgiveness, but as proof she survived and evolved. And as she walked away, he finally understood what the loss really meant. He didn't lose a woman because she wasn't enough. He lost her because he was too weak to value what was rare and loyal. And she became the success story he had to live with forever, without access, without excuses.